All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. Thank you to everyone who is joining us online. We appreciate your participation. Members, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and will the Secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Orenshaw.
Present.
Senator Goycochea.
Present.
Senator Neal.
Here.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Here. Thank you very much. We are all present, so we have a quorum. First, before we begin the agenda items, I would like to briefly explain how our virtual meetings work. I know that many of you have heard this, but we'll quickly go over some of this information. As you know, the legislative building is currently closed to the public, so all committee meetings will be held virtually, meaning committee members, staff, and everyone else will be participating either through Zoom or by telephone. As in previous sessions, all committee-related information is available on Nellis, which is accessible from the legislature's website. Several ways for our public to engage: registering to participate in a committee meeting through Nellis, which places you in line to testify on a bill or provide public comment during a meeting; submitting written testimony to the committee email address or fax number listed on the agenda; or sharing your opinion via the legislature's opinion application on Nellis; and viewing committee meetings online through Nellis or on the legislature's YouTube channel. Committee meetings are listed in several places on Nellis, and you may register by simply clicking the participate button near the meeting date and time, and then fill in the required information. Just a note, while the meeting registration is required to participate, it does not guarantee you will be able to speak. And when you are on the phone line, please pay attention to which bill we are considering and follow the verbal prompts provided by the BPS staff so that you know which keys to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Staff will call on you to speak by the last 3 digits of your phone number. So if you need any assistance with these processes, please reach out to the committee tech manager at the email listed on the agenda. And just a reminder, when we have period of public comment, you will be given 2 minutes per speaker. Today, we are going to start with Senate Bill 39. I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 39. This measure provides for the acceptance of transfers of certain digital representations of United States dollars by certain governmental entities. And will the bill presenters begin when you're ready, please?
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. For the record, I have the great pleasure of being Treasurer of the state of Nevada, Zach Conine. It's my pleasure to be here today to present to you Senate Bill 39. And I'd like to start off by thanking the chair and LCB staff for all their help over the last week or so as we got this one wrapped up. So thank you. Senate Bill 39 makes a handful of changes to Nevada law, which will modernize the way the state does business. The bill does so by updating Nevada laws to allow state, local governments, and other governmental entities to accept transactions through digital representations of dollars, most commonly referred to as, quote, stablecoin. Stablecoin refers to a type of payment method, not necessarily one specific brand or company that utilizes them. These changes would apply to transactions residents have with the government, such as registering a car at the DMV or paying for a fishing license. Let's be specific as to what this does and what we're talking about. This isn't for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that have their own inherent supply or demand cycles. What we're talking about here are stablecoins, a digital representation of money that exists in a bank somewhere. This is an extension of taking checks or electronic transfers of funds, of taking credit cards, or something like PayPal or Venmo. Walking through the bill, Section 3 permits the state treasurer, upon approval from the State Board of Finance, to enter into contracts with technology providers who provide for stablecoin transactions. As described in Sections 1, 2, and 4, the state, local governments, and other government entities may participate in such contracts to accept stablecoins in government transactions. While state agencies, local governments, and constables may participate in the contracts with these vendors, they would not be required to do so and would not be required to accept these payments if they chose not to. This language mirrors existing statute, which allows the state to contract and receive payments through credit card providers. Again, think about this like an extension of credit cards, but just like credit cards, if an agency chooses not to accept them now, they don't have to. The Treasurer's Office is simply here to make sure that that transaction is available and as safe as possible. Leading financial institutions across the world, including Visa and JP Morgan, are exploring and adopting methods of stablecoin payments. Further, just last month, the federal government issued guidance allowing for the adoption of such payments at federally chartered banks. The federal government likens the technology to that of debit cards, wherein a digital value is stored on a debit card, wherein a digital value is stored on a debit card, a digital value is then stored on a stablecoin. In today's connected world, technology changes rapidly, and government is often the last to keep up. Senate Bill 39 presents an opportunity for the state to not only keep up, but to forge a path ahead. That concludes my presentation, and I thank you for all your time and consideration of Senate Bill 39 this afternoon. I'd love to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee?
There.
I'm looking. Senator Neal, please.
Thank you. So I had a couple of questions on the stable coin. So I was reading, there's a Federal Reserve article that was presented to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System in December of 2019, and it was called Update on Digital Currency, Stablecoins, and the Challenges Ahead. And there were a couple of things that were listed. And so if you could break out, number one, stablecoin is tied to a reserve asset, right? And so if you could break down, I think it would be helpful for the committee to understand what is a reserve asset and what are the features of a reserve asset, because it can fall into two categories of a security or a derivative.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but here's what we're talking about, and as we understand kind of the focus of stablecoins. So first off, remove derivative from the universe. The idea here is to provide a digital representation of a US dollar or something else, like an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver, that can be transacted and paid, used to pay for government services, right? That's the reserve currency we're talking about. So instead of something like, say, Bitcoin, which exists with its own supply and demand, where the value of Bitcoin is worth whatever someone is going to pay for Bitcoin, and et cetera, right? And it goes up and down. Stable coins are tied to things like the US dollar, which, though they have their own inflationary pressures, it's just like taking payment in a credit card or something like that. I hope I answered your question specifically for the record.
Yeah, thank you a little bit, because I mean, when I was researching it, they're not all tied to the US dollar, right? Because it crosses borders. And so the asset that backs it could be a US dollar, could be gold, could be something else. Mm-hmm. But I'll just get into my second issue. Also, when I was reading and researching that stablecoin, one of the challenges is that stablecoin can put consumers at risk. So when they were examining, there were estimated losses in 2018 of 1.7 billion because of how it operates within the economy. It's an alternate form of currency. And then there was also estimated losses of 4.4 billion in 2019. And the issues that came up in the research that I did was these losses can be attributed to a couple of things. Number one, weak anti-money laundering controls, weak counter-terrorist financing protections, amongst other things. So can you speak to that?
I sure can. And Treasurer Conine, for the record, thanks for bringing this up, because that's a really good differentiation between what we're talking about and the broader use of cryptocurrencies in general. So the stablecoins you're referring to are stablecoins that are pegged to the US dollar, but not actually tied to a US dollar. So the delta is, this is a stablecoin that's issued that is worth $1 or worth €1 or something else, but there isn't actually $1 in a bank somewhere. In order for the state to meet its responsibilities and my fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities as the treasurer or whoever the next treasurer is, you actually need to have $1 backing it up. So this is a digital representation of a dollar that's in a bank somewhere, as opposed to some of these stable tokens, which are tied to the value of a dollar, but there's no actual dollar there. Right? So the value is set, but the number of tokens isn't controlled. It's a difference between going from, say, the gold standard to a fiat currency. This is the gold standard. There is something in a bank somewhere. And so when you look at the losses that have happened in Bitcoin or stablecoin or anything else, right? Those aren't tied to actual US dollars in a bank somewhere. This would be tied to US dollars in a bank somewhere as controlled by our other regulations. And so I think that's a really important point. I'm glad you brought it up. So thanks for that. I think the other piece specifically is the state contracts in US dollars. We're not going to enter into an agreement with something that's backed by something that isn't US dollars, right? We're not going to enter into an agreement to take, I don't know, Chinese yuan or pound sterling or something else, right? When the state does get those dollars every once in a while in, say, like a safety deposit backs for unclaimed property, they immediately get transmitted, transferred into US dollars, right? That exchange happens right away. And the same thing happens here. If you'll notice in the bill, there's a 24-hour period. So it's not like the state would be getting paid in these assets and then hanging out, right? The state gets paid, it immediately becomes the cash that it's backed by, and the state carries on with its business. So it's as protected from loss as any transaction in US dollars would be.
Oh, thank you for that. Madam Chair, can I have one more?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I was bringing this up because I understand this is a state, but these were the concerns that were brought up at the federal level and on a national scheme tied to this particular currency. And so I want to bring up just a third point. There was also a discussion that I found in my research was that some of the issues of the operational risks that pop up with stablecoin are associated with the lack of clarity around the management of the reserve and the rights and responsibilities of the market participant that's in the network. So I get what you're saying about the backing, but I want to talk about this other issue in terms of who's in the network, right? Who is then providing potentially this asset that is being backed in a commercial bank, and this lack of clarity. So if the Federal Reserve is feeling that there is a lack of clarity around the management of the reserve and the rights and responsibility of the participant, and how can the state of Nevada manage that better?
Well, Senator, I think that's where we need to make some clarity between stablecoin and digital representations of physical assets, right? So in what you're talking about, as I understand it, you've got stablecoins out there that are put out by a third-party participant, right? And there might be assets somewhere, but there's no direct tie. What we're talking about is stablecoins put out by agencies where we can go look at the collateral. In the same way that we know when someone is saying coming with Amex, right, that American Express is behind that transaction, they have insurance in place, they're regulated, and everything else. The goal here is to allow the state to transact with parties where we're able to verify that the assets are real. In the same way that the state doesn't transact with every credit card provider on the planet, we work with ones that we're able to verify that are US based, where we make sure that the bills are going to get paid when they happen. In the same way that we don't extend credit to businesses that we haven't done business with before. I mean, all of the protections that are in place would be in place for this. It's exactly the same as taking a check. And literally exactly the same as taking a check, except that we get the money sooner, it gets verified sooner, and it's cheaper for the state.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Neal. Question, Senator Goicoechea, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Treasurer Conine, will Nevada be breaking ground with this, or are there other states that presently have the system in place?
Treasurer Conine, to the record, there's other states who are looking at it. At the same time, the city of Miami is actually starting to take cryptocurrencies, not what we're talking about, but what we're talking about, plus the whole range of things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. We expect as those exchanges become more prevalent that folks are going to take this. frankly, I think what we're trying to do is just dip our toe a little bit into the stablecoin water in the same way that we've done in past legislation that did things like allow the Washoe County Assessor's Office to keep records in blockchain. We want to be ahead of these things while still making sure we're fully protected. And we think that this is just enough of toe in the water to say, hey, we're interested in this kind of universe. We want to make sure that Nevadans have as many options to pay their bills as possible. We want to keep their costs down. And we know that this, if done correctly, and I think to Senator Neal's point, that is a deep concern of ours whenever we're dealing with anything monetarily, but if done correctly, can actually save people quite a bit of money.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I always have to find the unmute here real quick. Thank you. All right. Additional questions? Oh, Senator Hansen, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. No, I put my little hand up in there. I don't know. But Chair Scheibel, she wants it done that way.
No, it all works for me. It's as long as I can do. Thank you.
Honestly, this whole thing, I'm kind of wondering, is there actually a big demand on the state to do this? I mean, Senator Neal just touched on some of the concerns I have, and it does seem to reflect at some point on the Bitcoin issues and things like that frankly are highly confusing to me. Also, is there any kind of prohibition in the Nevada Constitution about paying your bills with anything but legal currency? I know there's something I've seen them in contracts and things like that where you have to, pay in lawful money of the United States or something like that. Is there any provisions like that under Nevada law currently?
Treasurer Conine, for the record, I appreciate the question. So this is legal currency, right? It's another representation of it in the same way that if someone was paying with a credit card, right, that's not the same as walking into, say, their local constable's office and handing them $100 in greenbacks, right? This is just a digital expansion of that. Now, one of the reasons we want to put it into statute versus, say, just doing it in the same way that we don't necessarily contract a new piece of statute when we do PayPal or Zelle or something like that, is because we want companies to know that Nevada is open for business to try and attract businesses that do this kind of thing to try it here. And the state gives us a really controlled mechanism, right? We only have one payee at the state level. It all goes through our office. We've got the Board of Finance and GFO and IFC as a backstop to make sure that as we put regulations in place, it can be as safe as possible. There is demand for this. We know that JP Morgan is doing it. We know that Wells is looking at it. We know that Chase is looking at it. Bank of America is looking at it. Other states are looking at it. There is a massive amount of customer demand for products like this. And we know that if we put something out there, it gives people another option to pay and hopefully saves them some money. The other benefit to something like this is it doesn't cost us anything. Right? It doesn't actually cost the state anything to offer this service unless somebody wants to pay in it. And if they want to pay in it, they're willing to pay the fees associated with it, just like American Express or MasterCard or Visa or something like that.
Well, you have to pardon me, Treasurer. I'm a little confused on it. The whole Bitcoin thing is, I'm old enough to remember when people were arguing about using silver coins versus fake.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm intrigued by it. Honestly, my initial instinct is like, whoa, we're kind of going down a rabbit hole that makes me very nervous on behalf of the state. If private sector people wanted to do this, like you mentioned, JP Morgan and those types of outfits, fine and dandy. But in this case, it's the government of the state of Nevada is basically getting ahead of the curve. And that always just a little bit makes me a little uncomfortable. So anyway, I appreciate your presentation. I'm sure I'll be hearing more about it here in the next few days. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Additional questions from the committee? I think Senator Neal had one more question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I just have a little bit more, So when I was reading some of the challenges, and I want this to be addressed on the record, when we're talking about the network that I guess is engaging in the activity with stablecoin, what popped up that was interesting to me was this: they said that less than 1/3 of these cryptocurrency networks require ID verification and proof of address. And so, although, yes, backed by the US dollar, there seemed to be some, I guess, concern that who was involved was not always clear in a transaction, because I know you're saying that it's backed by the US dollar, but the asset itself can also be not just a US dollar. And so I just want to break this down, because the way I'm interpreting this bill is that it is connected to this innovation city, and that this is a foundational piece for it to work. And if I am wrong, then correct me.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, it's not connected. So the ability for us to take payment in the form of stable coins and innovation zones, at least to the extent that I understand them, have nothing to do with each other. The thing that you're referring to specifically, as far as being able to, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I said Treasurer Conine for the record, but Treasurer Conine for the record, when it comes to knowing your customers, anti-money laundering, all of those rules are in place in different parts of our banking laws and regulations and statute and best practices and the things we have to do in order to be a depository institution. They're all separate from this. This is how money comes in. So by definition, we have to know who the customer is on the other side. We can't accept a payment for a piece of property tax without knowing who's paying it. We can't do it right now, right? There's federal rules and restrictions around that. None of those are changed by this bill. This bill is the equivalent of allowing someone to pay with a credit card back before credit cards were widely accepted. It's a thing that is going to happen around the world. I think our opportunity here is to be first, try to attract some of those companies here, right? And I'm talking about companies like Wells Fargo. Where are they going to do their initial rollout of their stablecoin? Is it going to be here, or is it going to be in another state? What state is going to get the benefit of those transactions? That's our goal here.
And thank you for that, Treasurer Conine. It's just that, I mean, I have hesitancy around it because it is an alternate form of currency. And I understand that in order for it to become a recognized form of currency, it has to be legitimized through state government and other entities in order for it to be a legitimate thing. And so the more it becomes widely accepted, the more its use becomes something that's common. I guess I am on the side of, I don't want it to be common. I don't want it to be actually legitimized. And so I guess that's why my questions are there, because I'm still not in a place where I feel like cryptocurrency, stablecoin, or any form of it has made its way into a space where monetary policy in general is not at risk. And so that's my opinion, that's my position, and that's kind of like my place with this, because I look at everything in context. If Nevada does it, Arizona does it, and Idaho does it, then you legitimize it within a region. And I guess in my mind, I don't want to legitimize it, although I understand that people want to be creative and these currencies are now out there. But this is just my general opinion. This was my opinion in 2019, and I hesitantly let out some Bitcoin. But now that it's growing at a level that was my fear in 2019, I'm watching these different currencies grow. And I kind of like the monetary system that we have. And I don't want to go back to the Confederacy of States where you have this one coinage and then Maryland has a different, and we're trying to figure out what the exchange is. That's just where I'm at. I'm being theoretical, but that's just where I'm at.
And Treasurer Conine, for the record, Chair, if you don't mind, if I could respond briefly.
Please go ahead.
So Treasurer Conine, for the record, Senator Neal, I really appreciate that. And I think three follow-up points. One, we totally agree. That's why we want it pegged to the US dollar, right? As opposed to a currency that Nevada is creating, which, of course, obviously is constitutionally problematic, but also would then create the Commerce Clause issues and going back and forth between states. We don't want that. What we want is for people to be able to pay their bills, right? And in the midst of, frankly, one of the greatest economic recessions we've ever seen, seeing what is happening at the federal level, seeing what is happening at state levels and at city levels. I'd like Nevada to be closer to the top on this one than closer to the bottom. And that's our intention here. Just like credit cards, just like the ability to accept checks, just like the ability for people to take on individual credit, which has helped millions of people expand their life and find greater worth, right? Expand their opportunities. This is just an extension of that. With all of the protections necessary, we believe, in order to make sure that Nevadans are protected. But we've got plenty of time here, and I look forward to, I'm sure we're going to have, I hope we have a lot of conversations about this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions from the committee? All right, I have a couple. Treasurer Conine, help me out. I've heard everything you said, but help me out. Just go right down to the brass tacks. So I know you said it's like a check, and I know you said it's like a credit card, but those are things we have in our hands. Those are real things we have in our hand. When I write a check, I have a credit card, I have something in my hand that says I have credit, basically, or I have money. So what is this going to be? Is this just kind of out there? Like, I'm not sure if I'm clear where we're going.
So, Treasurer Conan, for the record, I appreciate that question. And I think it's important to talk about what a credit card is, right? A credit card is a piece of plastic with a magnetic strip. It doesn't store money on it. What it does is connect your account to the account of the person you're paying through a series of intermediaries, right? An interchange, a Visa, MasterCard, your bank, right? And there's a process where money moves from one to the other. But actually, the credit card itself is worth no money, which is why if you drop it and lose it, you can call the credit card company and get them to turn it off, right? A check has a similar purpose. A check is a vehicle by which the receiver of the check can deposit it in their bank contacts the issuing bank, and then money is transferred electronically from one bank to the other. It's not like someone's bringing 1547 in cash from Wells Fargo to Chase, right? All of these things are electronic representations of money. The difference in something like a stable coin is that a stable coin exists, and at the time that it's transferred from one location to the other, it's actually transferred. In a check, by the time when you write the check, there's a delay between when you write the check and when the check goes. And if the person makes a mistake or the person doesn't have the money, that check bounces. Stable coins can't bounce. You can't overdraw a credit card, right? Because the coin is either there or it's not. So the coin is simply a digital representation of money. In the same way, right, and again, not to get into like greater banking theory, that everyone's money is currently a digital representation of money. To Senator Hansen's part, we've been off the silver standard and the gold standard for quite a bit of time, right? We have a fiat currency, a currency that exists because of the faith and the full faith and credit of the United States. This is a digital representation of that.
So I understand, and I heard everything you say. So just to confirm, I will not have a physical anything in my hand. Will I have a number that I put in? What will I do to show that that's me?
Sure. So the way that
credit card, I know it's me, right? Or I should do that.
So Treasurer Conan, for the record. So the way that digital purchases work with stablecoin is the same way that putting your credit card information into Amazon works, right? It's not like you go to an Amazon store and swipe your credit card. You put in your information and it pulls from the account. When you pay online at, say, the DMV, if you pay with a check, it asks for your routing number, right, and your check number, and you pull those off the bottom of your check and you send it. You don't have to throw that check out. You don't have to mail that check in to Carson D. You're simply connecting, right, your form of payment with the form of acceptance on the other side. And so same thing. For stablecoins, people hold them in something called the digital wallet, which effectively feels and looks like a bank account. So if you were to sign into your Wells Fargo or whomever else bank account, you can see your balance, you can transfer money to a sibling or whatever. It's the same mechanic. It looks the same. Apple Pay, Venmo, PayPal, excuse me.
Right. So if I go to the grocery store, I go to the cleaners, whatever I go to, I go in and they say you owe $18. What am I going to do? I get the Amazon thing because you're at home on your own computer, but
Sure.
How am I going to pay in those stores?
So Treasurer Conan, for the record, two points. One, this doesn't affect commercial transactions. So I can answer the question in like an aggregate sense, but that's not actually in the bill. The bill is specifically about the government taking it, and we take very few payments in person, except at the DMV. But the way that it would work at an in-person location is, I don't know if you're familiar with Apple Pay, where you take your phone and you tap it to the thing. That's the same thing. All Apple Pay is doing is it's connected to a credit card or to a bank account or to a digital stablecoin. Right? It's the same. It's the mechanic is simply.
I know my kids would be really surprised that I knew about Apple Pay. Huh?
There you go.
Okay, so the other thing is, in your conversation, you said it didn't have a fiscal note, but on the front of the bill, it says effect on the state, yes, under fiscal note. So can you talk to me about that a little bit?
So Treasurer Conan, for the record, let me turn over to the team in case anybody wants to jump in here so I don't say this wrong. But because there is, if we chose to accept it, there would be a fee, right? The stablecoin operators, there'd be a fee in the same way that there's a fee if somebody pays with a credit card, right? And so in order for the state to pass on that fee, that's the fiscal impact. But it would work just in the same way that a credit card would work if we passed on the fee, like Amex would work. It doesn't cost the state anything unless the state agency chooses to not try to pass that fee through and absorbs it. Some state agencies do the one, some state agencies do the other.
Right. Well, in this case, the bill actually says that it has a fiscal note. So it does have a fiscal note unless it gets removed. So that's just the process there. But sorry, Treasurer Conan, for the record, I think that's simply that there's a fee portion involved. This won't cost the state anything on its face. Like there isn't a cost to implement. There'd be a cost if we actually started taking the things, which would either be passed on to Nevadans or eaten by the state agency. And again, that's the state agency's call, just like it is now with things like DMV fees. Okay, additional questions from the committee. Okay, seeing no more questions, I'm sure there are some, but seeing no more right now, we will go to hearing testimony for support, opposition, and neutral. Just as a reminder, all testifiers, you have 2 minutes. And when you're ready broadcasting, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. To testify in support of SB 39, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. We are on testimony in support of SB 39. Please press star 9 now to testify in support of SB 39 to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Would you please go to opposition?
To testify in opposition of SB 39, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Would you please go to neutral?
To testify neutral on SB 39, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. I'll call Mr. Conine back in and ask him if he has any final remarks, and if not, we'll move on.
Treasurer Conine, for the record, again, Chair and Senators, thanks so much for hearing the bill. I know that sometimes we bring forward stuff that's a little out there and a little forward-looking. I appreciate the deference in hearing them out. I look forward to working with all of you and try to get this one over the line. Thank you.
Thanks much. We appreciate your time and your expertise. And with that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 39. And next, we'll move on to a work session. And today is our first work session, and we will be holding, we have 4 bills previously heard by the committee. And I would like to remind everyone that we will not be taking testimony at the work session. However, I may ask the bill proponents to participate as necessary if we have questions from committee members. And our policy analyst, Elisa Keller, will be walking us through the work session. Ms. Keller, if you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Elisa Keller, Committee Policy Analyst. The work session documents for today's meeting are available for members and the public on Nellis. The first bill for the committee's consideration is Senate Bill 14. Senate Bill 14 revises provisions relating to certain emergency response plans and assessments, sponsored on behalf of the Division of Emergency Management of the Department of Public Safety, and was heard by the committee on February 8th. And the committee will recall that Senate Bill 14 requires the Division of Emergency Management of the Department of Public Safety to post its guide regarding the preparation of emergency response plans on its website, and requires that a copy of the guide be provided to certain persons or entities only upon request. In addition, Senate Bill 14 requires the division to coordinate with the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, the Division of Environmental Protection, and the Governor's Office of Energy to annually compile a list of each utility and provider of new electric resources that is required to submit a vulnerability assessment and an emergency response plan. After the hearing, the Clark County Water Reclamation District proposed an amendment, which is included in the work session document. And the amendment adds the words wastewater service to the definition of utility in subsection 1A of NRS 239C 110. The bill proponents have indicated that this is a friendly amendment. And Madam Chair, it is my understanding that both proponents of the bill and the amendment are available to answer to the committee to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members?
Just one clarification, Madam Chair, Senator Goycochea. And as I look at the amendment, again, this only applies to services of 500 services or more at one location, right?
Ms. Keller, who is available with that bill on our line?
And again, Madam Chair, it's only, I want to make sure we're not applying to some little community out there, Ziggs, Nevada, with 30 connections.
Correct.
This is
Madam Chair, I believe Mr. Stoft is available from the Clark County Water Reclamation District to propose the amendment.
Mr. Stoff, are you available, please?
I am. I'm so sorry. I was scrambling to click buttons of unmute and video.
You have joined a whole host, a club of people that scramble. So go right ahead, please.
Sure. David Stoft. I'm General Counsel with the Clark County Water Reclamation District, for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to present this amendment. I believe to answer the immediate question that all the limits would still apply. So really the change that we're after is just to fill what was a very, very technical gap, I believe an unintentional gap, in the way the definition of utility and municipal utility were crafted. The Water Reclamation District is a very unique entity because it is the only wastewater service provider that qualifies or that wouldn't fall under, at least in Southern Nevada, would not fall under one of the municipalities. So if you look at the way the definitions read, beginning with utility, it omits what are wastewater services. It speaks to water, and in certain contexts, we do try to claim that we are part of the water industry, but we're certainly not comfortable enough to do so in this context, given the way the definitions read. And so what we're asking for under the definition of just utility is to add a reference to wastewater services. And that will loop us into the definition of utility, which then loops us into the definition of municipal utility, because municipal utility relies and cross-references the definition of utility. So all the other wastewater providers will fall under municipal utility because they're owned by a municipality. So City of Las Vegas, they have their own wastewater service. Henderson, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, they all have their own wastewater services. So they're covered. Because we are at GID, because we're a 318 created entity, we just kind of slip right out of that definition somehow. And we're just trying to work our way back in so that if there's a reference to wastewater services, then that allows us to be referenced within the municipal utility definition as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but the same limitations that will apply to all those qualifying organizations. And I believe, I was not prepared for that particular question, but I do believe somewhere in there is a reference to 500 connections or more, but I'd have to verify that if you wanted to give me a minute.
Senator,
I do appreciate that, but it does keep raising another question. If you don't qualify as a GID, we've got a number of GIDs across the state. That are they exempt?
So it's a good point. I don't know if you're asking me a question that you want me to answer, and I can't speak for all GIDs. I can speak for us and the fact that we don't qualify, which is specifically because we're a wastewater service provider. And general improvement districts are already referenced under the definitions, but because it also limits that to well, if you give me a second, I can actually tell you. So as of right now, a utility includes a government, a provider of water service, electric service, or natural gas service to 500 or more service locations. So there you go. And the term includes a government utility. So then you go up to government utility and you find that it's any utility that is, so there's your cross-reference down to utility, but it's any utility that is owned, operated, or controlled by this state or an agency or instrumentality of this state. And the second category is any utility that is owned, operated, or controlled by any county, city, town, general improvement district, special district, or other local government entity. So the issue from our perspective is that we would otherwise qualify as a GID because we're referenced. But because it begins with any utility and you go down to utility and it doesn't reference wastewater services, it appears as though we just bounce right out of those two references. So I don't want to speak for all GIDs in all contexts, but because of the way the definitions read, although it attempts to include us as a general improvement district, it doesn't because utility doesn't include a reference to wastewater services.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Stockton. Thank you for joining the Scramblers Club. We were looking for more members, so you may get to come back. Any additional questions from the committee on this particular bill? If not, I will entertain a motion to pass as amended, or amend and do pass. Senator Orenshaw,
Sure.
do I have a second?
Yep.
Senator Neal, second. Any discussion on the motion? Will the secretary please call the roll? Call vote. Thank you.
Vice Chair Orenshaw,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Neal,
Yes.
Senator Hansen,
Yes.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Yes. Thank you very much. The motion carries. And Senator Gokachia, would you be so kind as to do this floor statement?
I would love to. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You are very welcome. Thank you, sir. Okay, next we'll move on to Senate Bill 15. And Senate Bill 15, Ms. Keller will walk us through, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Elisa Keller for the record. Senate Bill 15 revises provisions relating to grant procurement, coordination, and management. Is sponsored on behalf of the Department of Administration and was heard by the committee on February 3rd. Senate Bill 15 applies the standard of the greatest extent practicable to certain duties of the administrator of the Office of Grant Procurement, Coordination, and Management of the Department of Administration. And in addition, Senate Bill 15 authorizes the administrator to develop a manual of policies relating to grant procurement, coordination, and management for state agencies. No amendments were proposed for the bill, and it is my understanding that representatives of the Department of Administration are in attendance.
Thank you very much. Any questions from committee members? Senator Hansen.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions. One is practicable an actual English word? Should it just be practical? Just laughing. I've never heard of the word practicable before. So just a question on that. And the other questions I had was when we had the folks presenting the bill, they mentioned they only have 3 members for the entire grants procurement program. And I was wondering if maybe, Madam Chair, later on down the road, if we're going to perhaps address that, I'd love to hear what they feel the actual staffing needs are, because according to the testimony, as I recall, they said we went from 50th in getting grants to 48. So we're moving in the right direction. But, this goes back to 2008 and the States Commission, all that. So I just kind of wonder, it seems like we're leaving a ton of money potentially on the table. And the other question I had, if they're available, a lack of matching funds. Is that a major problem in getting some of these grants for the state? We had some brief discussions behind the scenes on that. So I was just wondering, Madam Chair, if we could get some of those. I'm totally in favor of the bill, by the way. This isn't any kind of criticism.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Hasty is on the line. Please go ahead.
Madam Chair, this is Laura Freed. I serve as Director of Administration. I know I am joined by Erin Hasty, but I did not see her. Oh, there she is. Hi.
Thank you. It doesn't matter, either one of you.
I'll start it off and then I'll let Ms. Hasty back clean up. Yes, practicable is a word often used in drafting. I would yield to your committee counsel, Ms. Clarkson, to talk about the distinctions between practical and practicable. Number 2, there are 5 authorized positions in the grants office right now. The others are kept vacant for FY21 budget reductions from the special session last summer. As to the right number of authorized positions, I think that's a policy discussion we can have in the context of the budget. That's certainly open to our disagreement. Let's put it that way. But and the third question, I'm sorry, I blanked.
The issue came up that some state agencies can't get grants because they lack the matching funds.
Oh, okay. Right. That one I will toss to Ms. Hasty.
Thank you. Erin Hasty for the record, and good afternoon. So the grant matching funds, we had a pilot program where we had $1 million in like a fund, and we had a staff member who was there for that. We're accepting applications for about 3 months. We did get 31 applications. We were able to allocate $970,000 for it, of the $1 million within 3 months, which would return, if everything was awarded, about $3.2 million. And then unfortunately with the budget shortfalls, we did revert that back. But, we thought the program was successful and could show success. And so if there's opportunity in the future, we'd be happy to hopefully Laura will be happy to run it again.
No, I just want to, my thinking is I'd want to help you get as much staffing or whatever you need, because if we're leaving as much money on the table as it sounds like we are, this is an area, policy-wise or whatever, that we should be having a serious discussion. I mean, this isn't the time to do it, obviously, in a work session on a bill. So I apologize, Madam Chair. I just want to throw that out there. It just seems unfortunate that we're only 48th in the nation. We moved from 50th to 48th, and it's like, there must be some reason for that I don't understand. But anyway, thank you for indulging me, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. And to tandem onto your question, I'm going to have Ms. Clarson explain practicable.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Heidi Clarson with the Legal Division. Practicable is a word that we use throughout NRS. The definition of practicable is able to be done or put into practice successfully. So I think in the context of this bill, the intent is that to the extent that the office is able to provide or to perform these tasks, they are authorized to do so. So it is probably a drafting term, but I think in the context of this bill, it's used correctly.
Well, all right. Well, Madam Chair, being a school teacher, I was reverting back to Mrs. Batchelder, who was my vocabulary building teacher, who used to throw words at us to see if they were legitimate or not. So thank you, Mrs. Batchelder, for keeping me on my toes. And now I know about practicable. Thank you.
Okay, with that, if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion.
Move to pass.
Senator Orenshaw, do I have a second?
Senator Hansen.
Senator Hansen. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Will the secretary please take a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Orenshaw,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Neal,
Yes.
Senator Hansen,
Yes.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Yes. Thank you very much. The motion carries. And I'll ask Senator Hansen, to the extent that it's practicable, would you please do the floor statement?
I'd gladly do that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the honor.
You are very well, and the spelling test will be next week. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to Senate Bill 16. And Ms. Keller, if you'll walk us through the bill.
Lisa Keller, for the record. Senate Bill 16 is sponsored on behalf of the Department of Administration, and Senate Bill 16 was heard by the committee on February 3rd. Senate Bill 16 transfers the duty to provide staff assistance to the Nevada Commission on Minority Affairs from the Department of Administration to the Department of Business and Industry. No amendments were proposed, and it is my understanding that representatives from both the Department of Administration and the Department of Business and Industry are available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Well, I have to see you all. Okay, seeing no questions from the committee, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Senator Goycochea.
Senator Goycochea, thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second, Madam.
Second, Senator Orenshaw. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you. Will the secretary please call roll call vote?
Vice Chair Orenshaw,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Neal,
Yes.
Senator Hansen,
Yes.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Yes. Thank you very much. The motion carries. And Vice Chair Orenshaw, would you do the floor statement on this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Okay, with that, we will move to Senate Bill 28. And Ms. Keller, will you please walk us through the bill?
Senate Bill 28 is the final bill for the committee's consideration today. It is sponsored on behalf of the Office of the Military and was heard by the committee on February 10th. Senate Bill 28 establishes the offense of sexual harassment within the Nevada Code of Military Justice and provides that a person who is guilty of sexual harassment shall be punished by way of non-judicial punishment or as a court-martial may direct. The bill also makes the existing code regarding sexual assault consistent with the provisions of the Uniform Code of Military Justice of the Armed Forces of the United States and a directive from the United States Department of Defense. No amendments were proposed, and representatives from the Office of the Military are available should the committee have questions for them regarding Senate Bill 28.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any questions, please? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to pass? Am I looking at you?
Goycochea.
Senator Goycochea, unmute yourself. Thank you. I can see you talking.
Sorry, I was pushing the wrong button. Senator Goycochea, yes, do pass.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Neal. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. Will the secretary please take a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Orenshaw,
Yes.
Senator Goycochea,
Yes.
Senator Neal,
Yes.
Senator Hansen,
Yes.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Yes. Thank you very much. The motion carries. And I will go ahead and do the floor statement on this particular bill. And with that, we will move on to a period of public comment. And we'll wait just a minute to give members of the public a chance to call in.
For public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, your public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Then public broadcasting, I think we've probably waited the appointed amount of time to gather up those people. So hearing no public comment, that concludes our meeting for today. We will not be meeting on Friday. And so our next meeting will be on Monday. And that will start at 3:30. And we'll see you all then. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.